Good morning, and welcome to another contrived version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now, here's your conspiratorial and conspicuous host, Voice of Doom. Hello, good morning. So, I'm feeling a little bit better today than I was yesterday, which was a horrible day. And the microcosm and the macrocosm are all conjoined. So as the world spirals into chaos, so does my general life. And it's of my own making. And I finally came to the conclusion after kind of being sick of life last night, I decided to change, try to change. Because since I'm my own worst enemy, I just have to stop doing what I'm doing, and then things should get better. Because it's not people outside, and it's not other forces that are keeping me down, it's myself, because I'm an idiot. So, human revolution, like I said before, if you try to improve yourself, then everybody tries to improve themselves a little bit, then the world will get better. Stands to reason. And so I got up early, chanted for an hour, and I think I'll do it again tonight. I try to do it every day. If I can get in that kind of rhythm where I can devote an hour in the morning, an hour at night, then I won't really have time to do stupid things. So I'm going to try to do that because I think if I can do that, the world can start getting a little better because it's got to make a turnaround soon. I wanted to talk about Chicago, sweet home of Chicago, my kind of town. Just because we want to wrap up this, have a denouement to this Jussie Smollett fiasco. So, guilty and sentenced to jail and big, brouhaha, some sort of a swan song performance in the courtroom. And, he doesn't want to admit anything because it's embarrassing to admit you caused a global, worldwide hysteria by contriving a hoax that was really so ham-handed and stupid. So you talk about it, it's like, yeah, he should have gotten more time, look most. Or, people have different agendas. And he should be held up as a hero, as I said, because he opened people's eyes to the insidious problem of white supremacy that runs rampant throughout America. So I don't know about jail time, but I was talking to my kid and I said, what if there were riots over this hoax and people got killed, and who would be culpable? And I'm like, I think he would stand to be culpable because his action instigated the whole thing. And my kid's like, nah, he would be responsible. You can't do that can't say because you caused a riot that you caused, I said, well, look at the Chicago 7. So from the cold, windy streets of Chicago, 2021, we will go to Chicago 1969, because I asked my kid about if he knew about the Chicago 7, and he said no, and I think he would like it because he likes trial drama stuff. So I recommend. I went on YouTube, and they were nice enough to have the movie from the 80s and there was no commercials, so I think they wanted people to see it. Kind of hand in hand with them. But the Chicago 8, Trial of, it's a good movie. Look it up. I would highly recommend watching it. And the trial took place in March 1969 after there had been riots in the Democratic National Convention in 68, the summer of. So, we'll go through a little bit. It was a Title 10 of the Civil Rights Act prohibited crossing state lines in order to instigate riots. I think they use that to this day. And it was created after the assassination of Dr. Martin. They said, there were riots after that, and so they put that in there. At any rate, there was 8 people, and one of them was Tom Hayden, died 2016, activist, turned into a politician, congressman from California, very liberal. David Dellinger died 2004, activist, pacifist. Abby Hoffman, founder of the Youth International Party, the Yippies, died 1989 of an overdose. Rennie Davis, activist, organizer, died 2021, age of 80. Jerry Rubin, Yippie, activist, turned into a yuppie businessman, and died in 94 of a car, hit by a car. John Freund is a chemist activist who is still active, being an activist. And Lee Weiner is an academic activist. So they were 7 of them, and the 8th was Bobby Seale. And since he wasn't included in the conspiracy part of it, he was just lumped in there. He wanted his own defense, or he wanted to defend himself. And Bobby Seale was the founder of the Black Panthers, who were a militant group in the 60s and 70s and still are around a bit. Militant African-American group who wanted more than they were getting at the time. You know what kind of people they are, Antifa. So those were the 8. Now, Bobby Seale wanted his own defense, or he wanted to defend himself. The judge kept saying no. And the judge was a real racist, old school piece of work, one of those good old white pompous judges that, the hippies to him, you hippie scum, I'm not going to put up with that. So the trial turned into a circus because they were trying ideologies. They weren't really trying crimes. They weren't really able to come up with that, but Bobby Seale kept shouting, I want my constitutional rights, and he kept citing the Constitution, saying he wanted to represent himself, and the judge kept saying, shut up. And he wouldn't shut up. And he got bound and gagged, and if that had happened in this day and age, there'd be riots, all right. I mean, he televised the whole thing. They didn't even say boo about it. He was bound and gagged, the leader of the Black Panthers. So he can't talk. Don't give him his lawyer. Just totally take away his rights on the Constitution in front of everybody, and I don't think anybody said much about it. So that was the way that went. Now, the trial degenerated into such a circus that even the lawyers were just insulting the judge, and the defendants were all like doing whatever they wanted. They'd come marching in robes, or they made a mockery of the system, because that was their mission. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to break down the system. But the ironic part, well, there's a lot of irony, but just to round out the cast, so William Kunstler, the civil rights attorney, died in 1995, and Leonard Weinglass died 2011. activist lawyer. Not really an activist, just was defending the guys. And then we had Julius Hoffman, the judge, like Bull Connor. Like Bull Connor and George Wallace all wrapped up in one. And he's wearing a robe. And it was total mismanagement. And he stomped all over their rights. He overruled everything. He sustained everything that the prosecution said. So they couldn't really defend themselves. And it was a fight over ideology. I recommend watching the movie. It's really good. It's a docudrama. They got the real people in there interspersed with the actors. It's really good. But the ironic part is they got so insulting that they were all sentenced for contempt of court before they even got the sentence or got the verdict on the original charges. And the lawyers got the worst, because I guess they're supposed to have decorum in the court, and the judge was a narcissist and a heavy-handed pile of crap. He represented everything that people are railing about today, the white supremacists. So that was how that went down. They were found guilty and everything was overturned on appeal because the whole trial was a fiasco. It's very interesting because, they were icons and I admire them. I mean, they, fought against an unjust war and social things, racism back then in '68. Things weren't exactly as fair as they are now. Back in the '60s, there was still segregation, etc. And systemic racism, but it's of their own making. Like I explained before, everything's of our own making. So you create this problem. I just don't like the free, everything's okay attitude of the hippies. I think that caused a lot of problems. That really made things worse for everybody because there's no stability. People just have sex with anybody they want to, and they have kids, and then they worry about raising them later. And they really don't want to be with the person that they had the kid with. So it becomes a mess, and everybody knows it. Nobody wants to talk about that, but I don't like that about the hippie movement. And they sold out, and they sold out to the point where kind of, I don't know if it's a circle or what it is, but they gave in to capitalism and they gave in to materialism. Maybe they used it for liberal causes. And then you see what we have now. Liberal activism with money and trying to change things and trying to make things fair. And I tell you, we can't force fairness on people. Just let it happen like the drop of blue dye in the water. Everything will be fair eventually. You can't force it. Everybody's trying to force things. Like forcing us to think about white supremacy and making up a hoax to do it, So we go back to that, and I mean, kind of go back to, me, come full circle to me, that I'm part of the macrocosm, my microcosm is, and I got to get my act together. These guys got to get their act together. Not the Chicago 7, but 8, but the world has to get their act together. And so I'm going to try. It's maybe me, and then if my kid does the same thing, and more people try to improve themselves, the world could get better. Because I think we're kind of running out of time. So I threw in this stuff about the Chicago 8, because it ties in with the Chicago 3 and how that all went down. The ironies are obvious. I don't really want to get into it too much. It's really kind of tie in together, put your own connections. But it's interesting, kind of full circle thing. I'll go now. I'm getting boring. Thanks for listening.